To today's meditation time. It is an honor to get to spend these few minutes with you, and I hope that you feel like it is an honor to get to spend them with yourself. And so as you get settled in and your eyes can gently close, or you can cast your eyes toward the ground, just whatever works for you, just think about that for a second, how each time you show up for meditation, whether it's here collectively or on your own time at different parts of the day, it is truly a chance to let the world just be still and just not infiltrate your path for just a few minutes. And there is something incredibly beautiful about that. This idea that I can nurture and protect a little bit and really begin to tune into my heart and my soul and who I am. And then we'll find that as our time ends in meditation, and we have to go back and out of that world, into that path of busyness and noisiness, things are a little clearer, a little smoother, a little calmer. And so again, just honor the fact that you've shown up with yourself. Nothing to do but just be. And as your breath is beginning to just settle into whatever rhythm feels right for you in these few minutes that we have, I would encourage you to get comfortable. Because as much as it is an honor to show up and to be with ourselves, it is also incumbent upon us to bring comfort to our physical selves, so that within our practice, our body doesn't become a distraction. And when the body gets comfortable and the body begins to settle, the thoughts will begin to follow and do the same. And then you catch this glimpse of connection through all the parts of you, the mind, the body, the spirit, the oneness of you. And so we're on this journey, continuing our path, our study of these Yoga Sutras, these lessons, these guideposts for our everyday living. These lessons that were given to us nearly 2,500 years ago, but even here in this contemporary, noisy world that we live in, they hold such relevance. And so as you are settling and just paying attention to the breath in and the breath out, we're focused on Sutra 133 today. And it's entitled as Patanjali's Guidance on How Do We Maintain Serenity in Our Mind. And if we were to stop people on the street and just ask, what do they want more than anything? I have a feeling that again and again we would hear this theme of, I just want peace in my mind, peace in my life, peace in my heart, peace in this world. And so Yoga Sutra 133 actually gives us some guidance on how to maintain that serenity within our mind. And then eventually it begins to bubble over into the people and the places where we interact every day. And so listen to these words, this translation of this sutra. It says, the key is our attitude. When others around you are blissful, be blissful. When others around you are not, be compassionate. When others around you are virtuous, be encouraging. And when they are not, just disregard it. And he goes on to say just a little bit more, but just listen to that one more time. When you're surrounded by people who are blissful, people who are filled with joy and happiness, be blissful, filled with joy and happiness right along with them. But then whenever you are around people who are not, instead of being like that, he says, be compassionate. And then when you're around people who are virtuous in their actions and their thoughts, he says, be virtuous right along with them. But when you have people who are not, just disregard it. And I think there's a lot of lessons in there for us, because oftentimes that idea of when you're around people who are blissful and who are joyful, it is so easy to become just like that. It's almost contagious, this emotional energy that you feel from them. And at the same time, when you're around people who are not, when joy and bliss seem very far away from them, it is really easy to become like that. But Patanjali says if you want to maintain serenity in your life and in your mind and in your spirit, when you are surrounded by people who are not blissful, who are not joyful, you need to be compassionate. So I want to just pause with that one, and then we'll go on to the next part in just a second. But let's just sit with that for just a few breaths and think, what does that look like for me? Because oftentimes it's difficult. It's a little exhaustive of our spirit, of our energy. It's hard. But we also know that when we give in to being drawn down and pulled down by the unhappiness in people's lives around us, the serenity of our minds begins to disappear. But if in turn we can look at folks around us who can't seem to find the joy and the bliss and the happiness of life, and we can be compassionate, our serenity will be maintained. It's not a selfish motivation. We don't show compassion just to stay serene. We show compassion because we are serene. And we get to this point in our life where we feel the serenity so often, we cannot help but share it. So if you want to maintain serenity in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, when you're surrounded by those who are blissful and joyful, be blissful and joyful right alongside them. And when you're surrounded by those that are not, be compassionate. And then he goes on in part 2 to say, when you're surrounded by those who are virtuous, be encouraging. Affirm people, help them to know that what they're doing is being seen and it's being valued, and you recognize it and you want to encourage it. But then when you're around folks who are not virtuous in their actions, in their thoughts, there's a couple different translations. One says become indifferent to it. Another says just disregard it. I know that oftentimes in our human nature, we want to judge it. We want to find fault within it. We want to tell them or show them what they should do otherwise. But Patanjali says that is not the way to maintain serenity in your mind and in your heart and your spirit. Rather, you just need to disregard it. And I know at this time in our world, in our country, in our community, all it takes is 1 minute of turning on the news cycle. And it becomes very easy to recognize behaviors and actions that are not virtuous. And you start to feel this rumbling in your spirit. Sometimes it turns into anger or frustration. Sometimes even worse. What Patanjali is telling us is turn it off. Disregard it. Don't let it come into your life. Physically, mentally, emotionally, walk away. And I know there's parts of us that feel this responsibility to try to make the world better. But as you read deeper into the sutras and of most of the yogic texts, they tell us the way to do that is through our own personal transformation. And we can't be personally transformed if we have disruption in our spirit. So our contribution to this world, part of our dharma, our purpose, is maintaining our serenity. We breathe in, we breathe out. We feel the peace internally. We feel it externally. We feel it in the wholeness of who we are. And so as we get prepared just to sit and to be quiet and still for just a bit, I want to share with you the Sanskrit word for this. And I'm going to say it a few times, almost as a mantra, just repeating it a few times. And then I hope that maybe this word can become yours. The word is prasadhanama. Prasadhanama. Prasadhanama means undisturbed calmness. See if you can picture what that looks like in your mind. Undisturbed calmness. And again, if we were to stop and just ask people on the street, what do you want in your life? In your children's life, in your grandchildren's life, your neighborhood? Undisturbed calmness. I have a feeling that would be the theme. People are hungry for it. And we have a way of showing what it looks like. Prasadhanama. 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 Undisturbed calmness. And not collectively as well as individually. Let's sit with our undisturbed calmness. If thoughts begin to come in and try to disturb that, just like that chapter, that verse says, disregard them. Just let them be. Become indifferent to them. Maintain your breath. And then in turn, you will maintain your prasadhanama, your undisturbed calmness. Breathing in, prasadhanama. Breathing out, undisturbed calmness. Breathing in, prasadhanama. Breathing out, undisturbed calmness. And breathing in, prasadhanama. And breathing out, undisturbed calmness. Our meditation practice does not make us immune from all the difficulties of life or from the world, but it does give us a different way of responding to those difficulties. And so as we go through our path tomorrow and in the days to come, we will encounter those who are blissful, those who are filled with joy and happiness. And let's remember to also be blissful and filled with joy and happiness right alongside them. And then we will, in the coming days, encounter those who have no bliss, no joy, no happiness. And let's remember it's incumbent upon us to show them compassion. And then as we go through, we will see people who are living virtuous lives. Their actions, their words, their deeds Let's be encouraging of them. Affirm them. Let them know that you see them and value them and notice their efforts. And then as we come upon those whose acts and words and thoughts and deeds are less than virtuous, let's be indifferent to it. Let's disregard. Let's mentally, physically, emotionally walk away from it. And over these coming days, as we practice that, Patanjali told us 2,500 years ago, and I believe it today, we will maintain the serenity of our minds. We will hold on to this prasanadhanama, this undisturbed calmness. And I truly cannot think of a better gift, a better contribution that we could each make to our corners of the world. Namaste.